Allow me to describe something for you guys and tell me if this sounds all too familiar. You're not starving. You've got enough to eat. There's no worries there. You're not broke, and while you're not maybe making as much as you want, you probably have some debt. You still have a paycheck coming in every week or two. And you're not in danger, and any real danger. There's no threats of saber-toothed tigers or, famine or pestilence. Things aren't that bad. But you're tired all the time. You have this overwhelming sense of apathy. You find yourself bored, and you cannot focus. When you wake up, you're tired. You scroll in the morning, you scroll at night. You feel this sort of flatness, this sort of malaise. You used to feel like you had more edge to you guys. You had, a deeper hunger, some passion, more fire. But you don't really even know why this has gone away, why you sort of feel the way you do. A lot of you, when you sort of get toward my age, past your mid-30s, especially into your 40s, or like myself, into your 50s, you sort of chalk this up to, this is normal, this is just what happens. Or maybe you're just sort of busy. Or you think that maybe something is truly wrong with you. Maybe you do have a health issue. But let me ask you this. What if nothing is wrong with you? What if the problem was simply the environment that you were living in? Guys, we were built for struggle, not softness, not comfort, not ease. Our biological wiring, and yes, biology has a lot to do with how we sort of act, the way we do the things we do. We were built for movement. We were built on scarcity, not having enough and figuring a way out to get enough. We were built for risk. We had to weigh the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, the danger of everything, every decision. And then as men, especially men, guys, you were built for sort of earning your spot, earning your place. And men have always and long sort of always had sort of hierarchies. And these hierarchies were built on merit, meritocracy. You had to earn your place within, the so-called tribe. And to do so, you had to solve real problems. Not which Uber Eats to pick tonight or which video game you're going to play. But instead, we've switched this. In modernity, we live in sort of temperature-controlled boxes. I'm sitting here in Panama, and in this room, it's, probably 70 degrees. Perfect for what I wanted. We have literally unlimited food. Now, when I was in the US, it was pretty much ultra-processed garbage. You had to be very vigilant on what you ate. But the fact of the matter is, especially in the United States, more people will literally die of, diseases related to overeating rather than undereating. We have infinite entertainment, most of which is mindless nonsense, guys, usually subtly promoting some sort of an agenda. Simply click on Netflix, Prime, Hulu, YouTube, whatever your streaming service is, there's just mindless entertainment. Not to mention your phone with social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, whatever you want to watch. I'll even throw, guys, and I bring in every video, I'll even bring the prawn into that. And we really have no physical demand. You can be soft, weak, and, sort of unable to, be, physically strong, and you could still get through today's world, at least in the modern West or industrialized nations. Your body thinks, or it knows, you should be doing more with it. The body will give you signals, guys. And again, this is what disease is, dis-ease, and all these things, feeling fatigued, not being able to, carry a couple gallons of milk without getting winded. It's your body telling you something. Most of us simply ignore it. Instead, we focus on answering bullshit emails that literally have no point and scrolling Instagram, literally for hours on end. Grab most people's phones and look at their usage time, and it is off the charts. I'm talking 4 to 6 hours a day on social media sites. It's insanity. Well, What does this do? Well, this disconnect creates sort of a tension. And this tension, you will feel it. I know most of you guys have felt it. You have this sort of restlessness, this sort of frustration. It's just like a constant frustration. Like you just don't know what you should be doing, but you know you should be doing more. You get the brain fog, you get the malaise, you get the distraction. And all that is engineered. But you allow it in by watching the mindless entertainment, the social media. And all this leads to a loss of drive. Guys, it may be in fact low T, and watch this video here as I speak more on that. But the fact of the matter is, guys, you are just massively distracted. You can't focus, and that's not because you're getting older, not because you have a little bit of low T. It's because you let all this garbage into your mind. You don't focus your energies. Again, it's not that you don't lack motivation. A lot of guys, and I don't like the word motivation. If you follow me at all, I'm not a big fan of motivation. But you lack friction and you lack discipline. So that moves me to the next point, guys. Comfort is sedating you slowly. This is a slow drip, guys. I've used this sort of analogy before. Comfort is killing men. And the ubiquity of comfort, especially, again, in the modern West, you just look around. It's just absolutely killing men. So take your average guy in today's world. He drives everywhere. So not only are you sitting 8 to 10 hours at your job, but think about this. Think about this, guys. And I went through this scenario the other day. Let's say you went from, let's go 24 hours here. So from midnight till, let's call it 6 a.m. You sat in your bed, and you stood up, walked around a little bit, showered, did what you had to do, got in your car, drove to the office where you sat at your desk for the next 8 to 10 hours, got back in your car, drove home, meandered around for a little bit, let's just call it an hour, probably less for most, and then you sat on the couch for the rest of the night before, washing up, going to bed. Most of your life is sedentary. We're not made for that, guys. Think about it. Just think about that for a second. And then we eat this hyper palatable foods, potato chips, pizza. I won't even go on the list. All the pretty much fast foods that are available in the United States, you know who the usual suspects are. And it's literally on demand. It's why they call it fast food. It's sort of redundant there, but it's just garbage. You're shoveling garbage into your mouth, guys. And then dopamine on demand. Like I said, your phone that's all it is a dopamine drip. Scroll every 30, 60 seconds. The same thing as when you're watching this porn, guys, and you got 500 fucking tabs open. Your brain just a slow drip of dopamine, which needs, is less and less over time. Again, then this leads to that sort of malaise, brain fog, and, feelings of just sort of listlessness. Many guys now avoid hard conversations. They'd rather just avoid it. Instead of looking somebody in the eye, sitting down with them, whether it's their boss, coworker, wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whomever, they avoid these things. Push them under the rug, don't want to have that. And then, guys, this one, hopefully if you're watching this channel, it's not you, but avoids physical discomfort. Now I'm talking about anything. Whether it be going to the gym and putting yourself under, heavy weights, running hard, running at all, taking the stairs, cold showers if that's your thing, any sort of physical discomfort. God forbid for 10 minutes, a day that you have any physical discomfort. And so many guys then wonder why they feel so fucking dull, so sort of lost. Again, comfort just doesn't relax you. Comfort by itself is not a bad thing. It is a thing. It's your choice of constant comfort that's killing you. And it sedates you. And the sedation kills any hunger you have. This constant sedation, you don't want to do anything. You don't feel like building anything, building outside of your job. You don't feel like leading. You're deferential. You leave that to others. Let the politicians do it. Oh, my wife will make the decision. You become deferential. And that's not an attractive quality in a man, guys. And you don't feel like pushing. You feel like you've hit this sort of, ceiling in your life. And and it's a ceiling made of paper, but you don't want to push through it because that requires effort. And guys, you have to do that. And the worst part for many guys is they don't feel anything. They're just sort of numbed out. And that's due to this incessant, overstimulation that's constantly coming into their lives and that they allow into their lives. And again, it's not necessarily you're weak. Again, the slow drip has brought you to where you are and you're over comforted. We have to understand that comfort is not the answer. All right, guys, this is part and parcel with comfort. Not a damn thing requires much effort or quote unquote strength anymore. Let's be real for a second. Modern life does not require you to be strong. Fuck, that could be physically or mentally. And here's some examples of that, guys. You can survive easily in the West being out of shape. You think I'm wrong there? Look at the, percentage of Americans that are overweight or obese. 3/4 of the people look like, sacks of fucking Jello. You don't have to be disciplined. You can be emotionally reactive. Just look at the news. Both the left and the right. And again, I'm not picking either side. I think they're both equally as, nonsense. People screaming and getting emotional over the most, insane issues that don't really matter in the grand scope of things, but they're told to react to it. And they do because you've been programmed to. You're massively distracted. You can't focus. You couldn't read a book for 10 minutes. And then, guys, so many people absolutely accept being average and mediocre. They just accept it because pushing, past that discomfort to get to the next level is just not something they want to do. You're not going to die, guys. And that's the thing. Maybe in our ancestral past, if you did those things, if you were weak, undisciplined, unmotivated, you didn't want to do fuck all, you may have died, or at the very least, you probably would have been sort of kicked out of the tribe because there was no use for a man who didn't carry his weight. It's that simple, guys. But as I said, now in society, things are made so easy, so comfortable, you have to do less than the minimum to get by. And drifting now, it's just, a lot of guys will still sit there and say, they have these thoughts of, I feel like I should be doing more. And I used to have this sort of edge when you were, when you were a younger man, 18, 19, 20. You sort of had these dreams I've talked about in other videos and things you wanted to do. But these sedations have killed those dreams. And then why do I feel behind? Well, one of those reasons you're behind is, well, you very well might be. That could be the first answer. But you're constantly comparing yourself to people on social media who, the fact of the matter is, these are curated images that are carefully picked to show you the best, fucking 15 seconds of their life. It's why you think you're so far behind, but you're not. But when nothing demands strength, guys, strength decays. The old use it or lose it applies here. If you're not using your strength, and again, I'm not just talking about physical muscles, guys. Yes, that is the most obvious. But when you let your brain rot, you're not reading, you're not educating yourself, you're not constantly learning, challenging yourself, building something. Your brain is no different. It rots as well. All right, guys. Well, here's a pretty simple one. Think about when you do put effort. Why do you feel better after you do hard shit? And you need to do hard shit. Be honest, guys. When do you feel the most alive? Well, for myself, and probably many of you guys agree, after, going to the gym and doing a strong lifting session, even when you didn't want to do it, and especially when you didn't want to do it, you went in there and you just did it. You pushed the weights, you pushed past those sort of mental barriers. You didn't want to go, but you walk out and you're like, oh man, I feel better. A long run. Guys, there's plenty of science, and again, it would apply to lifting as well, but as far as, dopamine, natural dopamine that spikes when you do something, physical exertion. A run is perfect. You've heard of the term runner's high. Very true. Endorphins and dopamine are released. Again, when you're doing it, it kind of sucks. But when you can push through the suck and get to the other side, you feel better. Something like a cold shower, guys. I don't do as much anymore, and the cold water here in Panama is not exactly cold in my shower. But I used to, in the winter, when I lived in the northern US, I would take cold showers. In every single day, it sucked. But I felt better when I got through it. Not because of, like any woo-woo science, but I just did something hard that made me uncomfortable, and I did it anyways. That sort of mental barrier I broke through. A bold decision. You've just made a decision in your life. I'm going to quit my job in, a month. I'm going to cut back on my debt by, tightening the belt. I no longer am going to, have my subscriptions, and I'm going to read books instead of watch TV. A difficult conversation. Maybe you're in a relationship that's going nowhere and both of you know it. But instead of sticking to the comfort, sort of the feelings of comfort that's sitting there, you decide that it'll be better off for both of you if you break free. That's a difficult conversation, guys, but something that needs to be done. And then building something. Guys, I'm not talking about tangible, but it could be that too. You like working with wood, metal, whatever. That's, if you want to do that, that's fine. There is definitely a reward in building something with your hands. That's certainly a sort of a male experience for the most part. But, writing a book, I wrote this book. It was hard. It was challenging. I was frustrated, but when I, completed it, I had a sense of accomplishment. I did it myself. Same thing here, building a new YouTube station, whatever. Maybe if you're building something on social media, whatever it is, guys, build something. And again, those feelings, you'll feel good. That's not a random feeling. That is a feedback loop. That is your mind and your body telling you something. You challenged it, you got through it, and you feel better. That gives you this sort of alignment. And again, your system does light up when it faces resistance, when you have a purpose. That's what we're here to do, guys. We all feel the resistance, all of us. But it's your decision to fight through it is what separates, the people who level up from the ones that sort of stay stuck. We certainly don't need more comfort, guys. We need to choose our difficulties. And I'll sort of end this section here is just, guys, you have to choose some hard things every single day. And if you do, these things do inevitably maybe become easier, pick different hard things. There's a science that shows when you do things you absolutely don't want to do, it literally triggers your brain. Whether that's cold showers, guys, going to the gym at, 5 a.m., whatever it is, even reading 10 pages, you can say that's not, physically hard, but for some people, it is. Do hard shit every day. All right, so guys, this will lead us to the next point. So what do we actually do? And here's the point where so many guys get stuck. They have a clear understanding that there is a problem, but they don't quite know how to fix it. So here's the fix, guys. Just as I said, start injecting sort of different hardships into your life. Do hard shit consistently. Now, guys, here's a caveat to that. When you're behind, you didn't get there in one day. The same thing is getting out of sort of this malaise, sort of this rut that you're feeling. Don't do everything at once. Grab a couple things. Like I said, I'm using the cold shower example again, but that would be fine. Do that, and then maybe read 10 pages. Don't make a list of 15 different things and try and tackle all at once. It's a recipe for failure. Build on small wins, guys, okay? And we don't need this to go to the extremes. Now, some people fall into that. You find something that you love and they sort of go to the extreme. Definitely don't do it to be performative. You can document your journey on social media or on YouTube if that's, what you want. But don't do it for validation and likes. First and foremost, this has to be for you. As I said, if you need the social media validation, you need to tell the world what you're doing, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Use that, like I said, to document your journey and inspire others. That's a great idea, but it has to be for yourself first. So here's some examples, and I think we talked about it. Get a gym or fitness routine. Guys, if you don't have one by now, if you're a man, you're a person, you need a fitness routine. For men, I would encourage lifting heavy at least 3-4 times a week. Maybe more, maybe a little less. Have a routine. Walk. Anytime you can walk instead of drive, walk. Guys, first thing in the morning, on your lunch hour, after work with your wife or the dog or the kids, just walk more. Walking is the absolute cheat code. Clears your brain. And leave the headphones out once in a while. I don't say every time, but leave the headphones out once in a while. Not only will you burn calories, but you also get this sort of mental clarity. And especially after you eat, guys, there's plenty of science there. I'm not that guy to just sort of deliver that, but I do know that you will feel better and you will burn more calories when you do a walk right after you eat. Delete the apps, guys. If you grab your phone right now, I'm sure you have a bunch of apps that you either don't use or ones that absolutely suck up, your focus, your time, your energy. Delete a few of those. Delete them all, but start with a few. Delete that shit. Or if at the very least, put a time restriction on them. I think Instagram and most of the apps, you can sort of restrict your usage. All right, guys, I'm going to sort of, be sort of, patronizing word here. Eat like a fucking adult. Fruit Loops for dinner is not an adult meal. Pop-Tarts for breakfast is not an adult meal. Guys, it's pretty simple here. Eat meats with protein. Eat vegetables. Eat real fruits. And sort of keep your carbs to a minimum. And what carbs you do eat, don't make sure they're not highly processed carbs. Eat a potato, guys, a sweet potato. Eat some rice. This is stuff is very, very simple. And I don't think we need to overcomplicate this. Just simply eat like an adult. Can you have cheat days? Of course. But make them the exception and not the rule. And again, set one uncomfortable goal. Not only are we doing, shit we don't want to do each day, hard shit, pick a goal that you have to achieve something that is hard. It pushes the level, sort of the barriers of your comfort. And then, damn it, get to that goal. And again, do one thing daily that builds a skill. So I don't know, Sid guy, whether that's, maybe it's learning a language, learning to sell a new skill, excuse me. Maybe take an online course, watch some YouTube tutorials, learn something new, play an instrument. These are all good things. But we do know, guys, any edge you've lost is not going to come back through more comfort. It only comes through one way, guys. One way only. Discomfort and work. All right, so we've got two choices here, guys. The way I see it, you only have two options. So we can settle for the passive comfort, and then, we're going to settle for that slow decay, or we can choose discomfort and growth. Two options, guys, and they're completely up to you. But please understand this. No one is coming to demand it from you. I'm sure you've heard the saying before, no one is coming to save you. That is very true. And here's the last point to that, is nobody really cares. Nobody really gives a shit. You're going to have to do this on your own, guys. And when you start to separate yourself, you start to break out of this sort of malaise, this mediocrity, and from where you're at and level up, people are going to notice, and they're going to sort of, take note of that. And again, so you're going to have to demand this from yourself. You can watch all the motivational videos from, David Goggins or, any of the millions that are on either Instagram or YouTube. Trust me, there's no shortage of them. And that might work for a day or two, but the fact of the matter is, guys, you have to demand it from yourself. You have to be disciplined. You have to hold yourself accountable. Discipline beats motivation every day of the motherfucking week. And again, that's a difference between a man who sort of coasts his way through life and a man who builds. All right, guys, I'm kind of wrap it up here. And so if you've been feeling flat, I think you guys know what I'm talking about. I use the word flat here. Bored, apathetic, no direction. I could go on with sort of adjectives and explanations, but you know what I'm talking about. You're just going through the motions. Guys, you are not broken. You don't need any pills from a psychiatrist or psychiatrist, whatever. It's because you've been living in a world that sort of take all the barriers away from you, and it was done on design. Some of it, there's probably deeper reasoning, but other of it was people love, they'll pay for that comfort. So you have to recognize that. You have to be the one that chooses discomfort. In our world right now, you talk about, tossing the world on its head, maybe 100 years ago even, life was generally very hard, very uncomfortable, sort of miserable for a lot of people. Now it's literally of too much comfort. It's insanity. So we need to bring back that discomfort. We have to do that deliberately. Again, this isn't, guys, about being a sort of masochist. I think that's the one that, likes the pain. It's not to punish yourself or to sort of hurt yourself, but it's to sort of, reignite you, to wake you up, and that's what you need to do. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, watch this one next. It plays well off, what we talked about here. Also, guys, appreciate you making it to the end here. Like, subscribe, comment. I said, guys, I read all the comments and they help me, give better feedback, sort of give me more topics to discuss that I think can help men. Guys, again, I appreciate y'all. And remember, live deliberately.